Okay, so I have a very brief presentation this year because I know that we presented last year and we gave you a lot of the background information about our programs. We're continuing to ask for funding for our spay-neuter program, where we are serving, still waiting for it to come on and pop up there for you guys. Where we're serving a wide variety of the citizens of all over Hays County, but especially in San Marcos. About 62% of our clients, our families are from San Marcos, and they are, although we are only asking for about 12% of that program's budget from the Human Services grant. Okay. There we go. We are the only free low-cost service provider for families in, sorry, I'm trying to get it back to the beginning, in our community. Emancipet used to come out to this area to provide services, but their mobile van no longer comes out here. And the average wait time to get to utilize their services is quite lengthy, and our clients would have to go into Austin to bring their family pets there. 87% of our organization's expenditures go into our programs, with 76% going to this particular spay-neuter program of owned pets from underserved families in our community. The way we're able to keep our expenses low is we have a very active board member. Our board members volunteer at our spay-neuter clinics. They volunteer at our pet pantry, going out into the community to raise awareness and funds. We also have a large group of volunteers who help provide these services. One of the big reasons we are asking for additional funding is we just started a collaboration with PAWS in Dripping Springs, and we're able to now fix large dogs through that program. Large dogs are very expensive to spay and neuter. For families, they have large litters, which is very costly for our families if they have to feed and care for large litters. And those are, if you go in our regional animal shelter, those are a lot of the times the animals you see languishing there for months and months and months, the bigger dogs. And we had our first clinic yesterday with PAWS, and we fixed mostly pit bull mixes and shepherds at that clinic, all large dogs over 40 pounds. We work with many of the social service agencies to target these same clients. Our flyers are in English and Spanish, and we provide these flyers. For example, the food bank just passed out 700 of our flyers along with their food, and we are constantly reaching out to work with other organizations to serve those clients. We're helping people and the pets they love so that they're able to use their limited resources to feed their families and take care of things like rent. We've had a number of clients who we've helped fix their animals so that they could stay in their housing because their lease required it, or so that they could obtain new apartments that required their pets to be fixed. And we're asking that for your support once again, so that we can continue our work. And that I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And once again, a big part of our increase is so that we can accommodate and fix those large dogs. It's a new program for us, but it's really an extension of the services we've been providing the community for years and years.
Great, thank you. You now have 5 minutes for question and answers. And Ms. Keenan, if you can please give me back my hosting privileges.
Host. And I'm sorry, how do I do that?
Go to participants And you'll see my name and you'll see the three dots and then make host.
Okay. And
You can also, if you see my video and you scroll over my image, you'll see the three dots and you can click on there as well.
I think I did it.
Mm-mm. Nope, I'm still regular.
Okay, Sabrina Jennings, co-host.
Yeah, look at, yeah.
CBG.
And I know there's two, so it might be easier to go over, scroll over my, in the gallery
Oh, I
where my
see.
images, yes.
I see, I'm sorry. It's just giving me the option to chat and pin. Oh my goodness.
Did you already give the other privileges to the other San Marcos CDBG?
I might have.
Okay, Brandon, can you please make me co-host? And then while Brandon and I are doing that, you have 5 minutes for question and answers. Any members of the board have any questions?
I do. Kelly, you mentioned that this is a new program and that you're partnering with Dripping Springs. Will they be contributing to any of the funding to provide those services
Yes.
that you're going to be offering? Do you know how
Yes.
much at this point?
Right now, it's more in-kind services. They're using their vet techs. They're sending their van from Paws and Dripping Springs to pick up our clients' dogs in San Marcos and bringing them back to San Marcos. So I don't know exactly how much they budgeted for the part of the program. I just want to clarify that just the additional 5,000 from last year is for that program, not the whole amount. We're still asking for funding for our regular PALS clinic program and our vouchers with other vets.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question on the application. I saw that there's a question that indicated like eligibility and if yes, like attach a copy of those guidelines. So I saw like the populations you serve or target, but what metrics do y'all use to like determine who qualifies for these services?
We use that income chart, and it's based on the income and federal guidelines and the number of people in the household.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So this is specifically geared towards large dogs, and it's in addition to some other funding you're asking for that you usually request, or am I
Yes.
confused?
So, oh, sorry. So last year we requested the 20,000 to help with our PALS spay neuter program. That is our PALS clinic and our work with area vets with the vouchers. We were able to start this program in collaboration with Paws and Dripping Springs. And we're going to service 24 large dogs a month, and with the possibility of increasing to 48 large dogs. So it's both our normal spay neuter services plus the addition of the large dogs.
Oh, okay. So it's 25 total,
Correct. Yes.
and the 5 extra is to accommodate larger dogs,
Correct.
which the kennels are full of.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. All right, that sounds reasonable to me.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My thing is, you keep mentioning Dripping Springs. Do people with large dogs have to go out to Dripping Springs to get neutered?
No, they will come to our PALS clinic in San Marcos. The Paws is sending their huge big van down to our office, picking up the dogs, taking them back to Dripping to their facility to fix. Then they're bringing them back to San Marcos, and the clients come pick them up in the evening, in the late afternoon.
I'm pretty selfish with that question because I have a big dog. So what I'm wondering is what would happen if we didn't fund that portion of the request?
It would be scrambling to find other funding and possibly cutting back the number of clinics. Our funding, every month we look at our funding and then we decide how many clinics that we can support. So we're willing to do more for the community and we're constantly looking at sources of funding to do more.
I appreciate you, your willingness to answer the questions. Thank you so much.
And we're currently getting about 275 to 300 applications a month for our services. So there really is a great need for spay neuter services. So families don't have that extra burden of extra.
What percentage of that is from San Marcos?
The percent of applicants is about 42%, but what we end up serving, partially because I guess we're located in San Marcos, is 62% of the pets that we're serving right now, and the families are from San Marcos. And we can occasionally we'll get applicants from like far away that don't realize we're in Central Texas.
5
Great.
minutes.
Thank you so much, Ms. Keenan. Right. So we are now going to move on to the next presenter. The third presenter today is Combined Community Action with Meals on Wheels Rural Capital Area. And our presenter today is Ms. Kelly Frank. And Ms. Frank, I am about to give you co-hosting privileges.
Okay, thank you. There we are. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
My name is Kelly Frankie. I'm with Combined Community Action, Meals on Wheels of the Rural Capital Area. And I want to thank you for the opportunity for applying for the funds and to speak to you this evening. We currently have 3 centers in the city of San Marcos. We're at the Allenwood Housing Authority. We're at Arizona Street, and we share that site, or it's actually Community Action of Central Texas's site, but we work closely with them at our senior center there. And we also have a site at La Vista Apartments. We provide hot noon meals 5 days a week. And those meals are staged and packaged at each of those sites and are delivered by our volunteers to homebound older adults in San Marcos. In 2021, we served over 54,000 meals in the city of San Marcos. And that is almost double the number of meals we served prior to COVID. So we've been able to serve more meals and more people after COVID. So many of the seniors and the older adults in the area and, in our entire service area were afraid to leave their home to go get food or go to the grocery stores. So we had a lot of new clients coming on. So therefore, the reason why we're serving almost double the meals since COVID started. As a side note, during COVID, at the height of it, we were actually serving frozen meals, giving the clients 7 frozen meals a week, plus every other week giving them shelf-stable meals that included, canned meats and soups and those kinds of things that they would have, so they would have extra food other than just those frozen meals we were serving. There's no income guidelines for the program. You just have to be over the age of 60 to receive the meals. And but most of our clients are lower income on that fixed Social Security or SSI. So they definitely need the extra help. We've had actually an older couple in San Marcos told me one time that by the end of the month, if they did not have the meals, the only thing they would have to eat, one time were sharing like a can of green beans or a can of corn that last week to eat until they got their check to go buy groceries again. And they said the meals helped stretch that their food costs, and they have that extra money to buy food since we provide the meals. All of our menus are approved by a licensed dietitian, and they meet the 1/3 of the daily recommended allowance for nutrition intake for seniors. The Meals on Wheels program is a direct client service program, and the money we request from the city of San Marcos is used to purchase meals. We have trained volunteers that deliver the meals to our clients, but they also provide a well check to the client. So if they see anything unusual in their medical or their mental state, that is reported back to our local site managers at those 3 sites I mentioned. And the site manager can reach out to the next of kin or the emergency contact and let them know we have a concern about a particular client. We've also run across times when a client didn't answer their door and a volunteer has found them, they've either fallen or something has happened, and we've been able to call first responders to get out there to help them and get the care they need or go to the hospital. So that's one of the things our volunteers are very good at, and spending time with the client. You know, the volunteer may be the only person they see for a number of days. So they can, you know, kind of talk to them and make sure they're doing all right. We currently have no waiting list. And so anybody that calls to request meals is put on the program. And with these funds we asked from y'all, that enables us to keep doing that so we don't have to go to a waiting list. Our local site managers do track the number of meals and the number of persons served. And those reports are sent to our central office. And we report monthly to the Capital Area Planning Council and the Area Agency on Aging. So they get a monthly report from us on the services we provide. And they also monitor our program once a year for compliance. And in the last 10 years, we've had no findings or concerns from them. One thing, I don't know if the girl from Paws is still on, Kelly. We're starting an Animals program to help our seniors
30 seconds.
And buying them food for their animals. So that's something that I may reach out to you, Kelly, about in the future, if we can work together on a program. But okay, I'm happy to answer any questions. And again, thank you for having me this evening. I appreciate it.
At this time, are there any members that have any questions?
I just have one. Do you rent the senior center, or is that a city building?
That's a city building that we're allowed to use. I think I'm not sure if Community Action of Central Texas rents it. I don't think they do. I think that's a service that's provided by the city. So we share that building. They do a lot of senior activities there. Plus, I think they do utility assistance in out of that building as well. So, but we're able to work together. We work very closely with them on other projects, not just meals and senior activities.
My mother was a beneficiary of that center, and I really appreciate what they did for her and what y'all do.
It's an awesome center. It's before COVID, I was able to go a few times over there and visit, and it was so active all the time. There were so many people in there and having their lunch and doing games, and they get pretty excited when they're playing bingo and some of the games they're playing, and they exercise too. They do like chair exercises. So it's pretty, it's fun to see that many people. And I'm glad that we're getting back to where they can come to the senior center again.
I have 2 questions. Are meals only provided to seniors or seniors and members of their household?
So if there is for instance, if there's a married couple and the husband's over 60 and he's disabled and the wife is the primary caretaker, then they both can get the meals. So if she was under 60, she could get the meals as well. We do serve some people under 60 that have certain disabilities that are Medicaid eligible. I don't have those numbers offhand, but they are eligible to receive meals.
And my second question was, from the time of your application to now, do you have any updates for additional funding you requested from the county or United Way? or
I have
pending?
not heard from the United Way actually emailed me a question and I have not heard back from her. And we did receive notice that we received 13,000 from Hayes County. We also have 3 additional sites in Hayes County. We serve Wimberley, Kyle, and Buda. So that would be, the ask from them was 15 and they gave us 13,000.
Thank
But
you.
we're also, we have found out about a sorority at the university that works nationwide with Meals on Wheels. So we're going to look at a fundraiser with them as well in San Marcos. So we're pretty excited about that.
What's this area agency on aging that's apparently they kick in $1 million?
Well, that's for, we serve a 6-county service area. So that amount is for our entire service area. Money comes from the federal government, from the Older Americans Act, and then it's distributed to the states and they take their cut. And then it's distributed to the Council of Governments. There's regional council of governments around the state, and then they take their cut, and then we get what's left. So we have been getting over $1 million for those 6 counties. That was during COVID. There was some extra money. We've been told to expect to be cut back again to our original funding unless something happens in Washington and they give us more.
Yes, they're generous that way.
Yeah. We'll see how that goes.
Did they tell you how much they're gonna cut back, or?
They have not given us that number yet. So we're hoping, prior to COVID, we received about 65% of our funding from the Older Americans Act. And we were actually getting funded a little more during COVID because of the different funds that were being filtered in from the government, ARP and American Recovery money. But that money is going to go away. So once it's all spent, I understand though that the state still has some of that money, and through Health and Human Services, they're trying to tap into some of it, but I don't know that that'll happen.
Is this the same amount you asked for last year? I'm trying to find that.
So last year we did not do an application, but this is the amount we've asked for in previous years. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Are there any more questions from board members?
I have one real quick. Kelly, you mentioned that the volunteers, when they go to visit, they do a well check on the visit. And that is itself, I mean, from my perception, another service that's being provided. And so is there a follow-up, or how do you follow up if you find something? Is that, do you just pass it on to the family, or?
They do. We do keep in touch with the family. If the client needs to go to the hospital, you know, we try to follow up with them when they get out so we can start the meals again. They're usually pretty good about staying in touch with the site manager. And, you know, our site managers become almost like second family members to some of these folks, staying in touch with them. When we were doing frozen meals, we were only delivering 1 day a week. And so what we would do is we would have like telephone reassurance calls where we would call our clients and check on them, see if they had any other needs during that time. So they do follow up with the client or the family member.
It's 5 minutes.
Thank you for this service. So needed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Frankie, for joining us today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
We are now moving on to the 4th presentation. The next presenter is actually going to do presentations number 4 and 5. It is the Greater San Marcos Youth Council. The first program that we will be presenting is the Children's Shelter, followed by the Family and Youth to Sex program. However, we are going to give time to the Children's Shelter first, followed by question and answers. And the presenter is Ms. Julia Ramsey New. Ms. Julia, I am going to give you co-hosting privileges. And whenever you are ready, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, and thank you for your service and for the opportunity to present to you. My name is Julia New, and I'm the Executive Director for the Greater San Marcos Youth Council, operating here in San Marcos since 1986, serving children and families. For many years, our children's shelter has had a safety rating of 100%. We have always exceeded the minimum standards outlined by the state for operations such as ours. And some of the ways we do that is by exceeding ratios and caregivers, providing normalcy activities, and requiring overnight staff to remain awake. That was before it was even mandated. And the best way to describe the program is it's a triage unit that stabilizes traumatized children, all different ages, all stories, and above all else, who need to feel safe and loved. Many years ago, we changed our state permit from children ages 5 to 17 to children ages 2 to 17 to keep sibling groups from being separated. This age range is unique to Texas residential child care facilities. At any given time, we have a minimum of 2 sibling groups in our care. Today, we have 13, ranging in age from 3 to 17. While most of them come to us through a formal referral process, we are always available to local law enforcement for children whose parents have been arrested and for runaways and throwaways. These are some of the children we've had the privilege to take care of over the past year. We had a sibling group of 3 who were placed with us for 11 months. When they arrived, the 16-year-old sat in one chair for 8 hours, sleeping there, not interacting with anyone. Although it took more time than usual, the teenager finally began interacting with peers and staff. We started to see genuine emotion from the teen, both in facial expressions and in the willingness to talk about feelings. They had not been in school for over 2 years. The teen knew credits for school were lacking and wasn't shy about asking for help. With credit recovery, the teen completed sophomore year and is now a junior. The younger siblings, 10 and 11, were also extremely smart. Our 11-year-old was able to attend an outdoor living class in Marble Falls and got the wish granted of having a birthday party in the park. Our 10-year-old got to participate in church camp over the summer, and after one day was hooked and expressed learning about big love, beliefs, and finding a sense of peace. Another sibling group, coming from a home where the oldest sibling was the primary caregiver to the younger sibling. It took some time for the teen to relax and realize that it's okay to take a little time and be a normal teenager because others were caring for the sibling. The teen had a great summer. Went to Fiesta, Texas with a local pastor and his family, got to play basketball and work out every day, and actually started to fill out from the meals our staff prepare and the mostly healthy snacks provided in abundance. Feeling comfortable enough to start counseling, realizing emotions are okay to have, learning how to deal with them, this youth has a brighter outlook on the future and wants to become a barber. Over the years, many residents contact us to let us know how they are. There are those who donate and others who come back to visit. We recognize that the ideal situation is for every child to remain at home, well cared for and loved by family. With many children not able to return in their homes due to abuse and neglect, we work diligently to ensure that each child who needs us gets what all humans need: kind consideration, genuine respect, and opportunities to maintain our dignity. Thank you.
At this time, we will start the question and answer. Are there any board members that have any questions? Would you like to raise your hand?
How many kids do you currently have at the shelter as of today?
13. Twelve is the best number. For some strange reason, anything over 12 makes it a little loud and crazy back there. But during COVID, we actually exceeded our 16-bed capacity a couple of times and had to get special permission to do that.
Julia, how long is the average stay and what services do they receive while they're there? And is there an individualized plan in place for them while they're there?
Yes. The average length of stay varies. Last year, it was 26 days. But we do have, again, the rare sibling group. The longest anybody has ever stayed was a sibling group of 2, and they stayed almost 2 years. That's when the judge in charge of the case says, you can't move these kids until you find their forever home. Upon arrival, each child, we start working on their service plan, and we have to determine whether or not the child needs to go to the doctor immediately, how long it's been since they've been to the dentist, what counseling services they need. So if we don't provide those in-house, then we go out and get the services they need.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How do they get selected to go to your service versus the normal avenue through Child Protective Services?
Okay, that's a great question. So in the state of Texas, when a child or children have to be removed from their homes, the first thing the state does is they try to find a family member or fictive kin, a neighbor, a godparent who is willing to take them in. If that doesn't pan out, then they try to find a foster home. If they can't find a foster home, then they refer them to places like ours. And that's why I referred to us as a triage unit, because a lot of the kids that we get are first-time removals. And, they get here and they're sick and they're dirty and they don't have any of their belongings with them. And so we get them. We had a staff member a long time ago said that what we do here is we make them beautiful again. And so that when they leave here, they're stronger. And we take every step we can to ensure that they're successful in the event they get to go back home, or if they go to a foster home. Some of them have to go to residential treatment, but it just varies.
Okay.
Did I answer your
So
question?
if there's no foster home available, you're the first line, and if that's not an option and you're at capacity, unfortunately, they go to a residential treatment facility, or what, like the San Marcos treatment facility?
No, ma'am. So there are several other facilities like ours in the state of Texas. And so there's one in New Braunfels. If we're full, they're going to go to New Braunfels. If New Braunfels is full, they're going to call Austin or Round Rock. Not every community has one, but congregate care is not ideal for children. It's just not. So, yeah.
Okay, so you're not restricted to any county, okay. Great. Or they could go back home to the parents, depending on if the home's, reevaluated, whatever got them there, it gets remedied or at least followed or something like that, right? But you don't
Yes.
work directly with the parents.
Sometimes children, their parents will visit here. And so we do have contact with some of the parents, but yeah, for the most part, parents are working to get their kids back.
Okay.
That's 5 minutes.
Could I ask one more question?
One more question.
Okay, thank you. So Julia, on y'all's chart for funding, I saw that there were a couple of line items: Hill Country Rally for Kids, In-N-Out Burger Foundation, and the Birdie and Johnson Foundation, but there wasn't an indication for funding granted or pending. Do you have any more information on any of those?
So for the shelter, no, I don't. So I know that we've got United Way and Hayes County on phase. For this one, we don't all indications that they're going to fund us again, but we haven't heard, because the funding cycles are so different.
Mhm.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks.
Great. We are now moving on to the next presentation, which is the Family and Youth Success Program. Ms. Julia, you have another 5 minutes for a presentation, followed by 5 minutes for question and answers.
Okay, great. Thank you. FAYS, Family and Youth Success Program, non-residential services. Parenting is hard. Living with people is hard. Supporting families with children so they can stay together is critical. An effective way to do this is through prevention and early intervention services designed to prevent incidents of child abuse, neglect, truancy, delinquency, and is absolutely the route to take. It causes less trauma, improves coping skills, increases protective factors, reduces stress and other risk factors, and is proven to be much less expensive than incarceration or foster care. Our non-residential program operates out of our Counseling and Resource Center, on school campuses, in clients' homes, and sometimes public places when preferred by a client. These are some of the youth and families we've had the privilege to serve. A 13-year-old client with an extensive history of abuse and neglect began counseling with one of our counselors. The client was unable to read and write and was unable to manage behavior that often resulted in violent outbursts. After several months of weekly meetings with the counselor, the client started to gain control of emotions, behaviors, and was learning to cope with the traumatic history. Instead of the usual weekly outbursts, the client was down to 1 or 2 a month and was able to recognize triggers. The client has learned how to effectively communicate with adults and went a full month without losing control of behaviors. An 8-year-old client was self-harming, yelling, and hitting parents, demanding material items, threatening to call cops, and running out into traffic. The client and parents had a language barrier and were unable to communicate fully. The parents were fearful of and for their child and were unsure of how to help. A family member referred them for our services and volunteered to translate for the family and counselor during intake and sessions. After 5 sessions with our counselor and the family's willingness to show up and do the work, the client is doing much better, listening to the parents, and is using learned coping mechanisms to self-soothe. The parents have been successful at setting boundaries. The family can now go out to dinner and to the store without it becoming a safety incident or a police report. Another young client had a fear of eating lunch at school. The client was worried about throwing up in front of other students. The client wouldn't eat until arriving home from school, but this became problematic because it resulted in feeling sick, weak, and nauseous at school. Together, the client and counselor created a SMART goal that is specific, measurable, and meaningful, achievable, and action-oriented, realistic, and timely. Each week, a small new goal was set toward the big goal of eating lunch at school. For example, making a list of snacks the client enjoys eating. Then the client decided to try eating them between classes. When this worked, the client moved on to eating snacks during lunch. They listed distractions and a support system to help the client. Over the span of 6 weeks, the client is now able to eat lunch at school without worry. The prevention and early intervention services provided by our agency help families grow their children into healthy and productive members of our community. Thank you for your time.
We are now starting the 5-minute question and answer session.
I have a question. Ms. Ramsey, how many kids do you currently have in that program? And how are they referred?
So right now we have 235, and they are referred by really anybody in the community. It's a voluntary program. And so a JP, for example, or a school counselor can refer them, that's fine, but then the family has to be willing to participate.
We're talking about 235 kids.
235 families, 235. It's a little bit tricky. So the state lets us,
How many counselors do you have?
we have 4. We're short staffed right now.
Thank you, ma'am.
Julia, do all of these intervention services happen on site, or do they happen in schools or through home visits?
We go to homes, not very often, most of the time the families come here. The counselors go to the schools, and, especially during COVID, we would meet in the park sometimes and do sessions, meet on our basketball court outside. So it just depends. Whatever the client asks for, we try to accommodate.
That's great. Thank you.
What will happen if you do not get our funding?
Oh, please, I don't want to think about that. So the city of San Marcos, the funding that we receive for both our programs is, it'd be painful. I mean, we'd figure it out, right? The agency and the board, we've been open a long time, and we've weathered some, like all other social service agencies and businesses, we've weathered quite a lot. For the shelter, the city funding is less than 10% of our budget, but it says that we have support from our community. That's how we leverage getting other funds. Mariana said In and Out and Birdie and Johnson, so when we show that we have community support, it's tremendous. And again, we would do what we have to do. I sometimes refer to myself as a professional beggar, so I guess I'd hit the streets.
So Julia, besides your agency, and you're very familiar with the youth agencies in San Marcos, how many of them actually work with kids? How many of them, in other words, meet them, talk to them, counsel them?
Well,
Like
I know.
You and YSP are about the only 2.
I'm sorry. Oh, well, no, absolutely YSB. The Women's Center, they do counsel the kids in their program. And Centacor counsels for drug addiction and I think alcoholism. And Community Action has started doing, I know they started doing young children services. They've always done services for young children, but they've added some prevention, a prevention program for young
Would you say it's a fair statement, even with all that's happening, there's still a critical shortage of programs for kids in San Marcos?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you. We do have a waiting list. I'm embarrassed to admit. We're not supposed to have a waiting list. We got it down to 4, and then the stack is maybe half an inch thick now. So we're trying to hire along with everybody else.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ramsey.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? One last question before time is up. All right, thank you so much. We are now moving on to the next presenter. Our next presenter is Treasured Protege, the Protege Program with Miss Laura Williams. Miss Williams, I'm about to give you co-hosting privileges. You now
Okay,
have
thank
5
you.
minutes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I do have a PowerPoint that I'm about to share for everyone here. Perfect. There we go. As I was introduced, I am Laura Williams. I am the founder of Treasured Protege, and the program that we requested funding for is a Protege program. Our mission is to be able to provide free in-demand career training, job skills by giving educational scholarships for individuals that are low income and have significant challenges and also want to be able to get into the workforce. This support also includes childcare and transportation. Our mentorship program specifically walks alongside those students. At least our goal is 3 to 6 months post the program. And the goal of that is to be able to give them further development in their ability to advance in those careers and to explore other options. Who do we serve? So we serve at-risk youth. So that includes individuals that are at least 16 years old and are in a program actually similar to what Julia has described. They have experienced different types of abuse. They've been taken out of the home and they're living in a residential facility. We also specifically target low-income individuals, single moms and fathers, and women and men who have survived abuse. How do we measure our impact? Is we actually have to do a completion rate. Right now, our completion rate is 92%. We also have to maintain employability because we do want to make sure that we're providing and supporting individuals into industries and careers that allows them to obtain a job. The passing rate for the programs that we're looking at providing funding and mentorship is the HVAC technician program. That passing rate for those students are 100%. The CNA program, which is a nursing assistant, the passing rate is 96%. And the phlebotomy program is right now at 98%. So these are different metrics that we use to measure impact of the programs that the students are deciding to enroll. On the left side of my screen, and I believe you're right, these are actually direct examples of the individuals that we target. The young man that is standing there with a certificate actually had a learning disability, and the instructor was able to spend time with them as he was taking his national HVAC EPA certification, and he was able to obtain that and obtain a job. The young lady in the white blouse is actually one of our at-risk youth who was actually housed in a program called Upbring in the Caldwell County area. She completed our CNA program, and this allowed her not only to leave that program with her high school diploma, which is what they provide, but also with a trade. And this allowed them to provide something that they hadn't before by partnering with our scholarship program. On the bottom right, you have a young lady with braids and glasses with her beautiful daughter. She's actually our first scholarship recipient in year 21. And she was actually referred to us through the Hayes Caldwell Women's Shelter, their outpatient program, one of their counselors. She was one of our first graduates of the CNA program, which has her exploring other options in the healthcare industry. And on the last but not least, one of our most recent graduates of that scholarship program is at the bottom, RJ. He actually got referred to us through Goodwill. And he started off, the reason he was at Goodwill, first of all, is because of house insecurity. So his family was looking at eviction. So that also qualified him to receive scholarship and support from our program. And he now has a job that has given him $30 an hour. All right, that is it.
We now have 5 minutes for question and answers. Are there any board members that have any questions?
Is there any other program in San Marcos like yours?
No, there is not providing this type of support. The one thing that I did not mention, I guess my slide just kind of skipped over in the proposal, we are asking to be able to provide 25 scholarships per program in 2023.
I had a similar question. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Capital Idea in Austin.
I am.
Oh my goodness, my lights turned off. But I was just curious, like, how do you avoid like unduplicated like clients across their programs? Because they also provide tuition and textbooks for healthcare and trade programs. So I was just curious, like either how you partner with them or avoid duplication because they do serve Hayes County residents.
Yeah, so specifically our students, which kind of helps us with vetting out the need, is actually we partner with organizations that have a process. For instance, the Austin Public Health, Goodwill was one of those examples, that Upbring program. So those students, for instance, are on campus going to school and they're being referred by their specific clinical counselor. So that's how we've just, number one, been able to make sure that we're targeting the right individuals that are in need, like the Hayes Caldwell Women's Shelter, that counselor, they know the history and the need of that person. So that just allows us to focus on who we are, who we have in mind for those scholarships, if that makes sense.
Do your graduates stay within the San Marcos area? When they're
Yes, so some do. So it's really like Hayes and Caldwell County. For instance, that Upbring program that's in the Caldwell County, it's a residential program servicing young ladies from ages 11 to 17. So we specifically speak to the girls that are 16 to 17 that are interested in healthcare specifically. We do not offer phlebotomy tech because of safety concerns and just their behaviors and healing process. But this year we had roughly, I've just written it down. So in 21, we had 22 people interested in a healthcare program. We did launch CNA first. In the second year, which is this year, we had roughly about 31 spending over that time that's actually native to San Marcos. And I believe that number is increasing because of knowledge and awareness of our resources and what we provide. I suspect that next year we will continue to see more of the San Marcos, individuals reaching out to us as they learn more about our program.
And what is the length of your program? Like 6 months or 3 months, or what is the course like?
So one of the things that we pride ourselves on is we do not waste our students' time. At minimum, they will spend 4 weeks, max 6 weeks in any of those programs. Number one, because it's not required for them to be in it for months, which you will find that why our completion rate is a lot higher. We're able to keep students engaged and get them to that end goal very quickly without them getting bored over something that's 6 weeks long. Two, it keeps our scholarships affordable, and it also makes those things obtainable for the community.
What is the cost of one of your scholarships?
For the CNA is $1,250. HVAC right now is $800. And the phlebotomy is $975. And that covers everything from the national tests or state tests, their uniforms, their supplies, any extra support needed, like the example I gave with the gentleman who needed that extra TLC during a testing situation. So all of that is covered within that.
Are you going to include any type of volunteer mandates, like taking your CNA classes or phlebotomy, where they would have to go out in the community and kind of volunteer their services just to, I guess, get a hands-on of what they're going to be required to do?
Yes, most definitely. So a few of our referral sources, which also gave us recommendation letters, are local community directors and also individuals in the community. The reason why we do like volunteer options for our students is, number one, to give an example for the nurse aid program. Generally speaking, they are caring for individuals that are elderly and are vulnerable.
We have
My
5
background-
minutes.
You said it's 5 already?
Yeah, but you can go over.
Go ahead
You
and
can finish
finish.
your point.
Okay. My background is a nurse and I started off as a CNA, hence why I'm very passionate about that. But what's very important for us is that our students see the individuals that they care for. So the way in which they can do that is to actually get that experience, and where they're also getting that mentorship and getting that critiquing on how to directly connect with those individuals.
Great. Thank
Can
you
I
so
ask-
much, Ms.
Can I ask
Williams.
one more question?
I got a question.
Okay, okay, oh, go ahead. I'll go ahead and give the time.
What?
Oh, I had a question. Do you guys do job placement?
Yes, ma'am, we
You
sure do.
assist with job placement? Okay.
Yes, ma'am, we sure do. So all of these are in demand, which is so awesome, right? So what we do is we do work with I'm stumbling, I apologize. Employers that are local to San Marcos, and that number has grown a lot. And I think, again, that's about awareness and getting our roots in the community. But those employers are able to come into the program, like HVAC, those employers will. CNA is a little bit more in demand. So we will try to connect those students with the employer directly, because we do have so many wanting those students. But yes, we do assist with employability.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And you have 3 mentors?
We would like to have 3 mentors for each program. So a mentor for each program. Right now, it just spans over one individual that just works with those students in combination with the instructor in the program that they are being taught in.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
One mentor for all 3 programs?
Yes, it's because the number that we have, Gloria, is actually very manageable, and it's a per class situation. So it keeps it manageable. Yeah.
I guess I'm wondering how somebody that's a mentor for a CNA is the same mentor for somebody in air conditioning.
So when you think about employability skills, it's not just necessarily skill. The teacher is responsible for that part, right? So that mentor is really looking at career advancement, how to sit for an interview, how to literally not sell yourself, but that's what I was told when I was growing up, sell yourself on that interview. How do you create, go further within that career? So that is a skill that person has.
Great. Thank you
Okay.
so much, Ms. Williams. If any of the board members have any other questions during the week, you can email myself or Carol, and we will reach out to the agencies that presented today. At this time, it is now 8:23. Co-Chair Earls, I will pass it over to you at this time.
Mary, you're on mute.
Thank you, Mariana, because I was just going. We will now hold discussions among the board members on programs, agencies, and applications for the purpose of clarification, comparison, evaluation, and assessment. This discussion is public. However, it is only among board members. This time is meant to be a free flow conversation, but please make your comments succinct to allow time for all board members to share if they wish. The discussion will be facilitated by Irma, Housing and Community Development fill-in for Carol. Okay, the floor is yours, Irma.
Great, thank you, ma'am. Board members, we usually discuss until 8:25, but it is 8:24, so that will be a little bit impossible. But please make notes as we go to assist with finalizing your scores. So at the end of the 8 weeks of presentations, you can refer back to these notes. At this time, I will open the floor. Any conversation regarding if you felt that any of these presentations had a compelling description of the project or program, regarding metrics, and is this something that San Marcos needs, and how is it going to impact our community? Any board members, if you like to raise your hands, and I will call upon you. I don't see any hands so far.
I don't know how to raise my hand.
Okay, well, Mr. Garza, I will call on you.
Are we only talking or discussing the ones that have presented? Or all of them?
Just the ones that have presented today.
Just the ones that have presented today. Well, you know, I support PALS. I think it's a great program, but Dripping Springs. And how much were they going to contribute? And it was going to be an in-kind contribution. And there was no real amount set on that. And I kind of have a problem funding somebody that's going to spend the money in Dripping Springs, even though the dogs are brought to San Marcos. And I have a dog. I'm fully in support of PALS. But I don't know, how did everybody else feel about that?
I believe
I'm
she
in
said it
agreement
was a
with
new
you.
program. And I think they're just trying to figure it out. And I agree with you, Ruben, you know, I'm really stingy about, you know, money here in San Marcos. I just feel like I'm hoping that Dripping Springs is going to contribute. I think she mentioned transportation. So I don't think they've kind of, it sounded like they hadn't figured out all the logistics yet. But it sounded like the transportation piece was going to be their contribution with moving the dogs back and forth. But I think we could ask for some more clarity on that. But I think they're just in the early stages of building that program. And I think it was only $5,000. Is that correct, y'all? Did y'all hear that? I think it was only $5,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe it was only $5,000 they were going to be asking for.
It was $5,000.
But again, it stresses the new program.
Right. I just think there's going to have to be a lot of tough choices made if there's only 500,000 available.
I agree with you, Ruben.
They're all great programs, you know. The last program, because it, you know, those programs that, you know, when you're working with persons with disabilities, those who have severe challenges, but they have a desire to be successful, and, you know, the programs are so individualized. And I think someone asked about the mentor. Mentoring is not easy when you're working with a person with disabilities, because you might be working with someone who is autistic. You know, there are a lot of things that you have to consider in the teaching style. So I'm really glad to see there's another program here in Hays County like that, because even coming out of the schools and the special education programs, you know, we already have a shortage of teachers. So that individualized teaching at the level we would like to see it is not there anymore. So it's programs, I think, like that, where you can pull out, or the school can refer them to these individual programs that don't have the large numbers. So I'm really pleased to hear that there's another program coming up in San Marcos, and just to hear that referrals are coming from Hays County. What did she say? Women's shelter? I thought I heard that.
Various places.
Yeah, various places. It's very
Yeah.
encouraging. I was glad to hear that.
And
All the
they're not-
programs are good. Community.
You know, at
outreach.
risk,
Yeah.
you know, different
Because I'm a senior.
challenges and but, you know.
Yeah, I like the last program, Treasury Protege, because it was so diverse, you know, in phlebotomy and CNA, and then have that for the men. And because I think sometimes the male programs are being left out. And so I like that she was trying to get funds so that she could take some of the burden off of the financial responsibilities for, obligations for taking these classes. And I like the fact that they're affordable as well. I'm used to schools that are charging like, you know, 4,500 plus. So when I heard the prices, you know, of everything, it's very affordable. But I just like that it was very diverse, and they see them to completion and also help them be employed. And I also liked her percentages, you know, like 92% completion rate, 80% employability, 100% for passing rate for HADVAC. And so they're really spending time with these people. And because I've had to take tests before, and so you have to be prepared. So they're really spending time with them, preparing them for the test so that their time in school is not wasted. So I think it just shows that they're really spending time with the people that are in their schools.
I agree. The Protege program, which was the last one, is really well developed. It seems to have a very comprehensive structure. They're giving those people the tools that they need to succeed. They're not just looking at the education, making sure it's affordable and it's a quick little curriculum where they can come out with a certificate and be employed. But they are also providing the transportation and childcare. So for individuals that maybe don't have a vehicle because of income, or just finding reasonable childcare is very difficult. Those are obstacles that most families encounter that prevent them from obtaining an education to get out of the system and to move forward. And so I really like that it's a very comprehensive, and then they're giving them all the tools that they need. The other one that really stood out to me was the first presenter, Corn. I really like that they are meeting or trying to meet that need with the rural communities, because the rural communities typically and historically do not have medical access. It is very common for individuals in rural settings to possibly have broken arms or need some sort of medical attention, but they delay it because they are just in an area that it's not easily accessible to get to a doctor, or they're in an area that doctors only come once a month. So they have to wait till the doctor is in town. So I really like their program, and they're trying to meet that medical need.
I agree with you, Monica, and I want to applaud Dr. Cohen because I witnessed the services out there in that rural east side of Hayes County. And believe it or not, there are people out there that didn't even know what COVID was or that it was active in their community. So they have put the work in out there. And I'm just, it's really sad that, you know, you have to almost go around and beg for resources when we're one of the most richest states. You know, the resources should just be flowing in. So I was just so happy to hear that being brought forth, but to realize the work that is needed at this time on the east side out there in those rural communities, families out there with children and not understanding or being educated about COVID and other kinds of pandemics that seem to have raised their ugly heads in our community. So I'm really excited and you know, really one program that, you know, I would just, you know, I can tell you right now, I certainly support the work that they are doing. And so I'm hoping all of the programs are worthy of funding, but again, like Ruben said, we're limited, and Joanne knows, it's the money is small this time around. So
I just want to say I've been kicked out 4 times. I got kicked out towards the end of the protege discussion, and I want to say I support that program. I think it's wonderful. I don't understand how you fail at being a phlebotomist. I would not have wanted to be the patient they failed on, because that's sticking you and pulling blood out of you. But anyway, as to the current program we're discussing, the only problem I see is they kept saying they wanted to do more, get out in the community more, but yet they want the money for an office. I don't see what good an office does when a lot of Hispanics, older Hispanics, really need to be seen at home. I know a lot of older Hispanics, and they're not going to leave their house. A lot of them are afraid to leave their house because of the pandemic, and they're immune deficient. So I think we need to take that into consideration.
okay, you guys, it's 8:36.
But
right
overall,
now.
I support.
Oh, sorry, Ruben, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, overall, I do support the program. I think it's a very good program. I just think that the way they're going about it is not going to be as effective as they think it is.
I have a quick follow-up. Could we
Go ahead.
ask clarification from Quorn if they can provide virtual or phone visits if they do have a physical location? That's another way of offering services without having to physically leave their homes.
I thought their main thing was immunizations, though. Wasn't
but
it?
it's all.
Wasn't their main thing immunizations?
I was
Yes.
part of it along with PPE equipment. So I was going to ask in line with Monica's question, like if folks do have trouble getting to community centers or wherever they're hosting these events, like do they, could they mail supplies? Would they do drop-offs to residents' homes for those kinds of things, formula, diapers?
Well, that's
Well-
to entice them. I got the feeling that was to entice them to come in and get immunized, to get vaccinated. Yeah, and I can certainly see the value in a brick and mortar place. If people have a hard time coordinating that in general, or even pursuing it, or once they get one shot, how about getting the booster, the second shot, let alone trying to figure out where it's being given. If it's in a stationary place, a specific place, they know where it is, they know, then they can figure out the details on how to get there or how to make it happen. I can certainly see the need for a fixed facility. I don't have.
My problem is their facility is going to be in Kyle.
No, they said between
They're
Kyle and San
looking
Marcos.
between Kyle and San Marcos, and I see why.
I saw
Ruben,
that.
you're
too.
going in and out.
And I see why, because I've looked for commercial buildings in San Marcos. They're not that many.
Okay, everyone, we do have to be out of the library by 9. So if you want to, like Irma said, if you have other questions that you need answered, if you could send them to her, and then we can certainly get the answers from those presenters this evening. So at this time, I'd like to move the meeting on so we can close up. And keep in mind, we can always come back and have further discussions. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah, I'm up for it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. It's now time to receive updates from board members on activities since the last meeting. Does any board member have an update for the group? Okay, then we'll move on. Board members may provide requests for discussion items for a future agenda in accordance with the board's approved bylaws. No further discussion can be held related to topics proposed until they are posted on a future agenda in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Does any board member want to request an item for a future agenda?
Yes, I do. For next week, I would like to add that we elect another co-chair because Elfreda, I think she resigned this morning or from this week from the board. And I just want to keep in mind that when we elect another co-chair, that it's someone who can take turns with being at the library. This was one of the reasons that Mary Earls is at the library for me tonight, because I could not make it. And so if you're wanting to be elected as a co-chair, Ruben or whomever, I just want to make sure that you can just keep in mind that one of the things that we need to be is available like every other Thursday, or we can work out something, to where if you just can go to the library once a month or whatever. But it's really hard for me to be able to go to the library every week because of what I do at my home. So just wanted to keep that in mind. But I do want to add that to next week's agenda, and maybe the voting can be something that can be done like later or either earlier before the actual presentations where the presenters are not involved in any way. I don't know how Carol would work that out.
So Irma, you'll pass that on to Carol?
Yes, I will. She will be
Okay.
back on Monday. We had already sent a preliminary agenda over to the city clerk, but if we need to add that, we can definitely repost again. We were trying to beat the clock and not have to rush on Friday, but I think we can definitely add one item. And then we'll resend the agenda and the packet over to the board members.
Okay, thank you. And we'll now move on to the agenda item called question and answer session with press and public. This is the opportunity for the press and public to ask questions related to items on the agenda. Staff, is there anyone present, in person, online, or on the phone to speak to this agenda item?
We do not have any additional people signed up. If at any time any of the members here from the public would like to speak, you may certainly raise your hand, but at this time we don't have anyone.
Thank you, Irma. Thank you all for your participation. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion was made by Chair Joanne Parsons. Do I
I
hear a
second.
second? Was that you, Ruben?
Yes,
Okay, second by Ruben Garza. All in favor, say
aye.
Aye.
aye. Aye. All against, please say nay.
Nay.
I will now adjourn the meeting at 8:43 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. See y'all next week.
Bye-bye.